Thank you so much. And good afternoon in this chilly weather. I didn't check the weather this morning. It's quite cold. But we have warm food, and please help yourself and get warm. And thank you for showing your interest in Korean art songs. I did not know that people would be interested this much. And also, I would like to thank Women's Studies program at ETSU for giving me this opportunity. Before we begin, I would like to talk about the history of Korea. The last dynasty, Joseon, was a very closed government. For a long time, Joseon resisted to change. Finally, when Joseon dynasty was trying to reform the country, it was too late. Joseon was taken over by Japan that already accepted Western culture. You can see the timeline of modern Korea on the screen. We had a long history of Joseon dynasty and a short Korean empire, and then Japanese ruled Korea for 35 years. And then Korean War was 1950 to 1953. Throughout the Gabo Reformation, music from Western military, school, and church was brought into Korea. Also, Christianity was introduced during the turn of the century. Christian missionaries taught hymn and sacred music to congregations. They also built modern schools and educated students using Western music. Because of missionaries in Korea, and they built schools and churches, that's how Korean people get introduced Western music. So through schools and churches, the first generation of Korean composers were born. Early churches and schools became outlets for many peoples who wished for independence from Japan. Naturally, national music was produced around this time to restore national identity. So, what is art song? So art song, there's some of my students, maybe they know what it is. Art song is a vocal music composition, usually written for one voice with a piano accompaniment in the classical music tradition. And the music was set to a poem or a text. 1920s. Most Korean musicians who studied in Japan were influenced by Rentaro Taki and Yamato Kosaku. Both these Japanese composers studied in Germany and brought the German lyric tradition to Japan, such as Schubert and Schumann. 1920, our first Korean art song was composed. And the title is a balsam, the flower balsam. The song that we will hear today were recorded by Esther Park, my colleague, and another friends of mine, Mac Gnong, and also me. Quite a few songs were recorded last week when I had a laryngitis. So please do not judge my voice. If you hear cracks, that's my laryngitis, not my ability. song reminds us the tropic songs of a German composer, Franz Schubert. Both composers and the poet, and Korean composers and the poet, were heavily involved in the Korean independence movement. This song was used as a national song towards the resistance to Japanese forced occupation. Now, 1930s, besides Japan, more musicians sought education in Germany and America, and they adopted the German lyric composition style, such as importance of a piano accompaniment and the balance of poetry and music, and through composed style. Also, the new music genre, song cycle, was introduced. In 1932, Kim Se-hyung wrote the first Korean song cycle, A Long Distance, to Gilbert Moyle's poem. Kim studied at the Chapman University, and the song cycle was premiered in California in English. Later, the songs were translated into Korea. So this is an example of songs in 1930s. The title is Longing to Go. In this song, you can hear ocean waves throughout the piano part. This technique was used by the first lyric composer, Franz Schubert, in Gretchen am Spinat, Gretchen at the spinning wheel. Also in this song, you can hear the spinning wheels in the piano part throughout the song, like it reminds us of a spinning wheel. But here you will hear the ocean waves. example in 1930s is New Arirang, in Korean Shin Arirang, and composer was Kim Dong-jin. And Arirang is the most well-known Korean folk songs. And there are many versions of these songs in existence depending on the regions of the country. Kim composed New Arirang using Korean traditional semachi rhythm, which is in 3/4. So I lost you, right? What is a semachi? Semachi is in 3/4. That's the rhythm of the semachi rhythm. He also integrated the existing Arirang melody in New Arirang to make it more singable and then easily accessible. So this is, I want to teach you what is Arirang. You can follow me. Arirang, 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 Arirang. Yes, that's every region have this theme in that music. So you can recognize, if you hear Arirang, that's melody. Now it's the 1940s. After Korea regained independence from Japan, Korean art songs showed two distinctive trends. First, traditional and lyrical composition style remained popular. Second, composers who studied in Europe and Russia experimented with a new Western compositional style. For instance, 12-tone, 8-tonal, post-surrealistic sound composition techniques. Unfortunately, many composers during this era music were prohibited to perform in South Korea because of their political ideology. For instance, even though the composer Lee Sang-yoon's music was internationally acclaimed, South Koreans never heard of his music until recently. Due to Yoon's visit to North Korea in 1963, he was kidnapped by the South Korea's Secret Service from Berlin in 1967 and was transported to South Korea. Yoon was sentenced to life imprisonment. However, a worldwide petition sent to South Korean government resulted in his release in 1969. The petition was signed by approximately 200 artists, including Igor Stravinsky and Herbert von Karajan. He never returned to South Korea. Next song is an example of lyrical style composition in 1940s. This song expresses sentimentalism, especially among Korean women. interesting thing about this poem is Cho means grass. And Dongshim, so we assume that that is some sort of a flower, but actually it's not. The flower does not exist. But rather, when this poet Sun-Joo, she was a ancient Chinese woman who was a geisha. And she had a lover, and she could not see him anymore. So she write a love letter. The way she fold the letter is like making as a flower shape. That's why it calls Dongshim Cho. So there's no real flowers. 1940s, another example. I mentioned early on how important Christianity was important in Korea's beginning of music. And next, the composer Na Un-young was a prolific composer. He wrote more than 1,100 sacred music, 13 symphonies, sonatas, operas, and cantatas. One of his main contributions to Korean music was adopting Korean traditional musical elements into his own musical style. Interesting about this song is it was written during Korean War. Korean War started June 25, 1950, and this time when he wrote, the Korean War was almost at the end, the most harsh, and people were going through such a difficult time, and he wrote this pastoral, calm, everything, so depending on his religion. I want to point out that he married to soprano. I think that's the reason why he wrote so many songs. 1950s, a large number of compositions were published by the first and the second generation composers. The two distinctive characteristics during 1950s are, first, unlike the first generation composers, many second generation composers studied not only in Japan, but also in other countries such as America, Germany, Austria. Second, even though there were more new compositions, the musical trend remained in lyrical style instead of looking for new directions. The reason was Korea was unstable after the war, and politically and socially, it was very uncertain. And the public wanted a song that they could relate it to. People were saddened by the division of Korea into North and South. Hopefully, young generation knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, Korea is divided into North and South. Many families were separated by DMZ, the ceasefire line. Because You Are With Me, you can see that the first woman composer wrote this song in 1950s, and set the poem by another woman pioneer poet. It sounds like a love song. It can be a love song, but this you can be God as well, or you can be longing. So a couple of meanings in these songs. And the second generation composer, Kim Sun-ae, graduated from the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, New York. She was the first woman composer in Korea, and she inspired many young women to pursue their dreams in a male-dominated supremacy society. After 1960s, in the beginning of 1960s, there was a turning point in Korean art song history. Many more composers were actively creating new styles of music. On the other hand, new lyric art songs were written and became very popular. The phrase national art song was used during this time. Written 1961, so Korea's war was finished 1953. Still a lot of family, still to this day, families are not united. But at that time, this song, Longing for Kumgang Mountain, Kumgang Mountain is located in North Korea and known for the most beautiful mountain in Korea, combining North and South. So whenever Korean people hear this song, we can really relate it to this sadness and depression of people, that family they cannot see anymore. And also, in the previous screen, talk about importance of the new media, broadcasting medias. This one was actually Korean broadcasting system. They opened the competition so people can submit their the new compositions, and this one was selected. Now it's 1980s. This song has an operatic style, and it became very, very popular after internationally acclaimed Korean soprano Sun-Joo sang at her concert. Now it is one of the all-time Koreans' favorite art songs. During my research, I discovered that the Korean art song is not simply something that we enjoy to listen and sing. Korean art song development is tightly connected to Korean modern history as well. Many important composers' works were prohibited in South Korea because of their pro-Japanese collaboration or defecting to North Korea for political reasons. After 1988, important date for Korean Seoul Olympics, and the ban was lifted for some songs, but much research still remains to be done to reevaluate and investigate. Recently, Korean art songs' popularity has been diminished by K-pop, musical theater, and other musical styles. Several Korean art song associations give efforts to restore and encourage new compositions. And also, composers and singers are consistently looking for new ways to connect to millennia. Thank you so much for coming today. And if you have any questions, please ask me. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
What is a lyric song? Could you explain just the definition?
Lyric song is more melodic and compared to lyrical is more legato lines and more the Western styles of art song more legato lines. Am I doing the right? Am I answering right way? Where you can touch easily, can singable, more legato line, and more following the bel canto styles of music, which means beautiful singing melody lines. Any other questions? Yes?
Are these particular art songs celebrated in South Korea today? Are they widely known?
Yes, it's very much so. And different American culture and the public does not know much of American art songs, I don't think, unless you are really interested. But this kind of songs, if you're Korean, you know it by your heart. Yes.
So as I hear those songs, except for maybe the song 23 song, which was my favorite, but you mentioned the influence of the missionaries and the influence of the German teachers.
Yes.
So I'm hearing that music, and it does sound very Western to me, even though it's sung in Korean, the Korean language. How would a typical Korean hear it? Would they embrace that as their music?
Yes. Even though music is a Western style of music, but lyric is not. And also they incorporated with a lot of Korean rhythms and melodies. So yes, we do as a national art song, national songs. And also, sadly, Korean folk song is not as much popular in Korea than Western music. People are more comfortable with the Western music these days. It's odd. Now I'm thinking about it. Yes.
I think you just answered my question, but so the poetry is written. I noticed that several of the poets and the composers were contemporaneous, but the poetry is written first, and that is traditional, and then music is composed for it.
Yes, yes, that's usually the case, except the first song. The first song he was composed the first, and then somebody else is to put the lyrics. Other than that, yes, everything was, they collaborated with the poets and composers together, or they found the lyrics that they really want to set the music for.
Do the themes always reflect what's going on at the time, or the sort of, the zeitgeist, the feel of the nation? Yes,
I'm glad that you pointed out. Probably you've realized that there's a lot of themes for longings, hoping, wishing, that's all Koreans actually, our national feeling, characters, we call Han. There's no translated English. The Han means this oppression, depression, sadness, longing, hoping, all combined in this word. So yes, Koreans are peninsula, if you know the geography a little bit, always invaded by China or Japan. So never Korea was in a peaceful era. So we were always struggles with other people's power. So yes, in Koreans, it's a quite depressed nation, I guess. And we made it as a wonderful art form. Yes?
I'm not totally sure how to articulate this, but based on what you said about Han, do you think that is why so much of contemporary Korean culture is so focused on Western style of music and K-pop and this like very loud, upbeat, kind of maybe because the history of the country has been evolving and developing, and Korea is in such a different place than it was in 50 years ago. So do you think that that's reflected in the music?
I never thought about it, but you are totally right. And Korean new generations, they never felt threatened since Korean War. So it's for them to, even though Korea is divided into two countries, we are still in the war, just ceased. We are in still war. And they don't feel that they are in a war. And they don't feel all the threats that Kim Jong-un is putting out there. Actually, they become numb to this. So they are more happy. When everything goes well, you don't think about those hardships and longings. They want to enjoy their culture, enjoy their youth and dance music and more the music that they can easily accessible. Yes?
As far as your art songs go, the only instrument that I'm hearing in anything that you played today was the piano.
Yes.
Are art songs written for other instruments as well?
Yes, can be accompanied by the orchestra accompaniment, and or chamber music. Usually, for the small chamber groups instrument. Today, I chose these songs because it's usually art song is accompanied by piano, not others. And also, this is the most reflect Korean the most to me. So and they're also very popular. Yeah, there's some songs that yes, accompanied by other instruments. Any more? I guess then, yeah.
I was going to say a round of applause and appreciation